I had read in the papers that the state of Florida had decided to desegregate after Mr. Virgil Hawkins others had made a lot of effort. The decision was made, and it was easy for me to decide that I should apply. And to my surprise and delight, I was accepted. And as a result, I had the pleasure of coming to law school and the opportunities that presented at that time. Fred Levin and I were classmates. We had some unusual experiences. Had a large study group of two because both of us were in a little different category from most of the other people. And there was one other person there who was still in a different category, which was the first lady who was in our class. There was one lady in law school. And she didn't make it past the first year, as I recall, because the stress was too much for her. In Fred and my class, in our cases, we were experienced shuffling and foot stomping, and in my case, it was maybe around Thanksgiving before it happened. And at that point, I realized that I was accepted by my classmates. And I had said something, and the whole class responded that way, and I said, well, that's one less thing to be concerned about. You'd have to be there to understand the ramifications, but it was significant. We finally got a mentor, Josh Oken, who was Jewish, and he was ostracized immediately by the faculty for befriending and trying to help us. But he lived through it, and so did we. Fred had the experience of asking the dean at the time for consent to take a week off when someone in his family passed. And the dean was too glad to tell him, yes, go. But while you're there, stay. Don't come back. But Fred came back and became a top quality student who graduated, I think, within the top 5 of his class. There were 360 people in our class, first year class. 60 of them graduated. Unfortunately, I was not one of them. I had 2 bad experiences in connection with that. One was that I was 5 minutes late to an exam, and when I got to the classroom, the door was locked. Well, that was a night that we'd stayed up all night the night before studying in preparation. I decided at the last minute to lay down for 10 minutes, take a shower, and get over here as quickly as possible, but that extended more than I anticipated. The other problem that I experienced was in criminal law, where Mr. Clark, who was the premier criminal law authority in the whole state of Florida at the time, was the instructor. And I stayed up. I don't know how long Fred was up that night, but I stayed up, and I felt I had mastered everything that needed to be known in order to develop an appropriate set of answers to what was anticipated. But when I got to the class, we had exam papers and we were assigned numbers. The only thing on my paper when I finished was my name, because my mind just went absolutely blank. It never happened before. That did persist for maybe 20 years after this experience, because for 20 years I was unable to even say the words University of Florida. I could answer questions about it, but I couldn't bring it up. 20 years after my experiences here as a student, I had a contact from Dr. Wrights, who asked if me to come to see him, which I did. And he wanted to know if I would be interested in having a relationship with the University of Florida. And I said, by all means. So my first level of relationship after this 20-year period was when I was selected to the board of the Alumni Association, which I worked with for several years. And the most significant vote I remember taking related to the organization of the Black Alumni Association, which I voted in favor of. Later I was admitted into the Blue Key, and later I was on the board to do fundraising for the Alumni Association, for the foundation rather, in Washington. And in 2009, I was awarded an Alumnus of the Year from the University of Florida. And I understand I'll be getting one later this month from the law school. So that plus this and the things I've told you about are very cherished, and I'm glad to have them. And I'm glad that the relationship has fostered and improved. And to show how bad it was, I did try to go back to law school. I went to Notre Dame and the University of Chicago, and didn't even remember the conversation. I met with the dean at both places, but they didn't say yes, they didn't say no, but I don't remember what they did say. So bottom line is that I'm glad to be here today. I have extremely good feelings about the University of Florida and the Frederick G. Levin School of Law, and I'm glad to be a part of both. Today was least expected of all the things that have occurred. It was not anticipated because when you come to the University of Florida, when you come to law school, you're there for one reason. You want to walk out with two things. You want to walk out with a law degree, and you want to walk out with good health. There's a lot of effort associated with both because, and the problem that was most bothersome was that I had the burden of being a law student, which was fine, but in addition I had a social burden that I tried not to think about. I didn't want that to interfere with my reason for being here. But I also knew that there were a lot of people in the state who were well-wishers, a lot were not. For example, on one occasion, instead of going home the way I would normally, I had a call from Tallahassee to go to Jacksonville and go to Orlando instead of go through Ocala and go, because my name had come up in Klan meeting. They were very active, but the Florida Highway Patrol had infiltrated the Klan, so they knew all about those things, but I knew nothing about it until a little after Thanksgiving, when two people in our class walked up and told us that they were not in our class, but rather they were from the Highway Patrol and what their function had been. And so that was a relief retroactively to know. But as far as today is concerned, it's just an honor and a privilege and a delight of first magnitude. And somebody told me, one of the presidents whom I met a few years ago, he said, George, somebody had to be first, and I'm glad it was you. And to that I would say, me too. It's first of all, it's great to be a Gator. So go Gators.